Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Kailyn. I'm a passionate educator and mindfulness practitioner, and I am so grateful for the opportunity to be able to walk with you as we begin to explore and reflect on what is the inner critic and how can we befriend ours. So the self-reflective journey today will start with just some thoughts about what our inner critic is and what function it plays. Then you'll get a chance to identify that voice within yourself and explore some activities that might help you to befriend this inner critic. And we'll finish and end today with a guided self-compassion meditation exercise. You will need with you, if you want to pause for a moment and go grab a pen, pencil, anything to write on. It's okay if it's your phone or your computer as well. So, New Yorker cartoon here. What I hope is that we can get to the point today to recognize that we're not here to kick these voices and these fears out of ourselves, but we're here to get curious and comfortable and notice what role they play in our lives and see if we can support them to be a little bit more supportive and beneficial for us. I want to begin by talking about a concept that has become very popular in modern culture, and this is this concept of imposter syndrome. I bet if we were all there live in person, I could ask you to raise your hands and say, who's ever felt imposter syndrome? And, we'd have resounding raising the roof, right? What this is it's this feeling that you might be unqualified, incompetent. When good things happen to you, you might chalk it up to good luck. Doesn't matter how hard you are working, putting yourself out there, putting yourself on the line, it's all external forces, it's good luck. Now, I want you to know that this is completely socialized in us. Oftentimes it comes from implicit bias for those who come from communities that are more marginalized in our world and are taught that perhaps their experiences don't have as much value. We start to internalize this feeling that maybe we're not worth it. I want to think about, when does this show up? And oftentimes we tell ourselves there's this fine line between imposter syndrome and humility, right? We have a new job title. We're in a leadership position, but we're kind of afraid or nervous to use that title. We don't feel like we fully deserve or embody that position. Maybe you've gone out on a limb on your own and you've created your own business and you are feeling too nervous to market or sell yourself. I know that this happened to me when I was creating my business as well. In a meeting, you're judging of your own thoughts and you're afraid to say anything because you think that maybe your opinion is not valid. I know a lot of us have felt and continue to feel and suffer through these self-critical thoughts. And I invite you just for a minute to sit with this and think about, what would it feel like the next time someone congratulates you to say, yeah, thank you, I am really proud of that. For me, I can right away feel this kind of tightening in my chest. But how would it be if we bring ourselves to practice this and to recognize the hard work that we've done to say that, yes, I am worthy. I worked hard for this. I do deserve this. We all carry elements of this phenomenon, this imposter syndrome. Look around you, right? we're also afraid to be caught out and worried that nobody else experiences this, that we don't really say anything. So this is our time, wherever you are, to look inwards and maybe to say something. To recognize, first off, that you're not alone in experiencing this, and you are worthy. Now, thinking about this imposter syndrome, thinking about this inner critic, what might you be looking out for? Simply put, there are a few key phrases that you might want to listen for to know if and when this inner critic of yours is active. I should be doing this. I should be working. It's not time to rest right now. Yeah, I should respond to that invitation. Always. Oh, I always mess things up. And the other end, never. I never do it well. I'm never going to make that deadline. I never give what I should to my students, to my colleagues. Oh, I'm too much of this, not enough of this. Hearing those voices that are trying to fit you inside this tiny box. Do you notice those? That means your inner critic is here for the party. So, what is this inner critic? How and why should we welcome it in? First thing you want to notice as you listen for those words, the shoulds, the always, the nevers, the not enoughs. Is this a voice you recognize in your head? Sometimes, not always, but often, these voices, the sound, the intonation, you might recognize someone from your past. If you do, just notice that. See where it lands. Get curious about why that's the voice that's there for you. You know, the inner critic is not just judgment. It's judgment that's attacking your humanness. I'm single, so I'm unlovable. I lost my job, so I'm completely unworthy. You see the big leaps, the hyperboles our mind is making. It's different than critical reflection. It's different than critical reflection. Reflection is necessary for us to grow and change and develop. But this voice, this kind of judgment, it holds us back. This is keeping us small. It's not helping us to grow. Now, here's the thing, friends. The inner critic, at its heart, it's trying to be helpful. It's doing so in a way that feels a little more hurtful. We all know examples of this as humans, right? But think about maybe it's this idea of being easier to put ourselves down, to not take the risk, than to feel the pain of failure, of rejection. Our brains are built to categorize. They're built to judge. And this is a part of it, but there's this element of going a little too far, living from fear. It's when we get stuck in these simple stories we tell ourselves, these one-liners that are not helping us to become our true selves. So Rick Hansen has this great analogy when he talks about the human negativity bias that has evolved. He talks about how the brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and thoughts. As soon as something unpleasant comes along, we just cling and stick to it. And yet, for positive, more like Teflon, just slides right off. Think about this as you go about your day, right? You have an amazing day in general, and one snarky email, one difficult interaction, and all of a sudden it's this bad day. And what is it? That's our brain trying to help us, trying to protect us. But here's the thing. We're not living, most of us, as hunter-gatherer societies anymore. We're not in extreme danger, needing to look out for animals leaping at us from the woods. For most of us, we are lucky enough that danger is not around every corner. And yet our brain is still primed to act in this way. And this is where the inner critic is operating from. We slide into this fight, flight, freeze time where we feel we're in complete danger. The risk here in judging is not so much the process of judging, but it's reaching these really tight and flexible conclusions, not allowing any sort of curiosity and wonder about what's happening. So one way, the best way to open up is layering in that curiosity, layering in that wonder, opening to awareness. So often we're unaware. This judge is just kind of on repeat, record scratching through our brain, right? And if we are able to start to pick out what's being said here, when is it being said? How does my body and my mind react to this? There's this Jungian term of integration of the shadow. As soon as we keep pushing and pushing away, it's going to become stronger. If we integrate this and welcome this as part of ourselves that's trying to be helpful, but doing so in a maladaptive way. As soon as we open that door, we're able to be a little bit more open again to ways that we might be able to soften this voice. So here's the thing about this pesky little inner critic. It's pretty predictable. If you take just a few moments, I bet you can easily identify your Billboard top 10 hits. Whether it's, oh, I'm way too intense in conversations and nobody wants to talk to me. Whether it's, I never remember to, check in with that colleague. I'm a bad friend. I should be doing more. We have these constant loops just playing in our brain. There's these patterns that emerge anytime we begin to feel a little bit insecure and unsure. Sure enough, those songs start blaring. So this is the moment in the workshop where I invite you to take out your writing materials, get a new document fresh up on your computer, whatever feels best for you, and just pause this video for a second as you write down your top 10 greatest inner critic hits. Okay, welcome back. I'm assuming everyone has their top 10 inner critic phrases written down. And I just want to sit for a minute and notice what it feels like to read over those. What does it feel like to see those on paper? Maybe you notice different sensations within your body. Maybe you notice even more thoughts, critical or not, leaping into your brain. Just try to breathe and be with those sensations. Notice what it's like. Just seeing that, being aware and articulating that. And now with that awareness, I'm going to invite you to get curious about supporting yourself. In just a second, I'm going to ask you to pause the video again and ask yourself, what are some ways that I might be able to respond here? As I become more aware of this voice as it arises in the moment, what could I do to bring myself back to reality, back to other thoughts and actions that I may be able to choose that may be more helpful? So pause for a moment. Write down a few suggestions for yourself. And welcome back again. I would love to hear what you came up with. And I'm going to share a few that I have used. Oh, sorry, moving into the befriending. And this is what we're doing, right? When we're thinking about, instead of pushing away that critic, it's how do we bring it in? How do we invite it for tea? How do we sit down and see what it's trying to do for us? So here are some simple practices that you might want to try. You might have some of the same ones. You might have more, and that's wonderful. Again, every person is different. So it's really important to come to this with the attitude of a detective or a scientist. Be curious. What works for me? What kind of jogs me out of this trance? So one might be writing them down like we did. Sometimes just acknowledging and getting them on paper, getting it in a tangible form lets you see and realize, oh, that's not a pattern I want to be repeating. I heard this one from another mindfulness teacher. Add on neutral language, right? Ugh, I'm a terrible partner. And the sky is blue. And water is wet. Adding this kind of separates us from that clinging to this judgment. Just let it float away a little bit. You might want to use a self-compassion practice. Kristen Neff is kind of the guru of these practices, and we're going to try one later in the session, but I invite you to also check out her website, heaps of wonderful free resources. You might try acknowledging the hurt. As you hear these phrases, just saying, "Ooh, that hurts. That language is not caring and compassionate. That's hurtful to me." Maybe you find a way to use humor. Rolling your eyes, making a joke. Oh yeah, I'm definitely the worst person in the world, right? Just kind of affirming the absurdity of some of these phrases. This is a personal favorite. Imagine it's someone else saying these things to you. How would you respond if some other person were following you around incessantly, drumming you with these phrases? Would you let that happen? Would you find a way to ask them to stop? Again, bringing in the compassion and empathy. Imagine now that it's your friend saying these things to themselves. How might you respond to this friend? Can you try that on yourself? And then imagining 3 alternate stories. Ugh, I'm the worst mom in the world. I forgot to pack a snack today. That's another way to see that. Wow, I can't believe I forgot to send my child a snack. I've been so overwhelmed lately. I'm gonna get to sleep earlier tonight and give that kid a cuddle. Whoops, that was a mistake. I'm so glad that the school was able to offer my child an extra snack. I'll do better tomorrow. Some of you may have heard of Byron Katie's famous 4 questions, and this is another strategy that you might be able to try to bring awareness and curiosity. This works for any thought, not just self-critical thoughts, but is it true? Some of us might quickly go, yes, it is true. I'm the worst. And pausing and slowing down. Can you absolutely know it's true? What happens when you believe that thought? And this is one of my favorite things about meditation practice and being mindful of our thoughts is this radical idea that you are not your thoughts. You can choose to believe or not believe. And in this case, when these critical thoughts are coming in, what happens when you believe them? And then who would you be without that thought? Maybe a scary question, maybe a freeing question. Another reflective exercise I'd love you to try is to think of a child, maybe a student in your classroom, maybe someone in your family, maybe someone you've known, maybe someone imaginative. What would you say to a child who's made a mistake? And just take a minute to jot down a few things you might say. And welcome back. When I've done this exercise with educators in the past, I receive pages full of kind, generous, compassionate responses. Wow, how lucky for you to learn from your mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. What do you need right now to support you? Again, how does it feel to read those phrases you've written and apply them to yourself? So often our hearts open outward before inward, and both are equally important, but we often ignore that compassion for ourselves. And we need it if we're going to have enough juice left to share with others and not burn out. So with that, I'm going to lead you through this simple self-compassion meditation practice. Allow yourself to get comfortable, sitting, standing, lying, no right posture, whatever feels good for you. Again, your eyes might be open and just looking downwards at a spot that's not moving. You might feel comfortable to close your eyes. And just settle in with a few breaths. Perhaps just taking a minute to do a quick scan over your body and notice if there's any sensations that are calling for your attention. Do you need to give your shoulders a couple shrugs? Do you need to bend and flex your toes? Do you need to roll your head? So often we push forth, just kind of ignoring our bodies. And this is a really important element of being compassionate to ourselves. So once you've touched in the places you need to touch in, settling back, sitting upright, not uptight, or lying, just allowing that fresh line from the top of your head down your torso. And I invite you to bring to mind a scenario that's a bit of a challenge or difficulty for you right now. As we begin in these practices, especially if this is something new for you, we always caution, don't start with a 10 out of 10 on the intensity scale. Be gentle with yourself. Give yourself a 3 or a 4 to begin with as you grow these muscles. And as you bring this experience to mind, first just acknowledge this is hard. This is suffering. I'm having a hard time. Just notice what it feels like to acknowledge that. And the second step of self-compassion is acknowledging this sense of common humanity. All humans suffer. Everyone experiences pain. I'm not alone. What does it feel like to recognize that connection with all other 8 billion people, plus other creatures in this world? Feel that shared experience. The burden you carry, the burden others carry. This is a part of being human. And lastly, give yourself a chance to welcome in some kindness. May I be kind to myself. Some people like the experience of giving themselves a little hug or putting a hand on their heart or their belly. Experiment with what works for you. As you send yourself those wishes of compassion, may I hold myself in compassion. May I allow myself to let in kindness. Notice if it feels hard or easy to let these wishes in. We're all different, and for some of us, this can be a really difficult experience. Just notice and be gentle. May I be kind to myself. Slowly, when you feel ready, bring your attention back to your space. Opening your eyes if they've been closed. Maybe allowing yourself a little stretch. Just checking in to see what it feels like to be living in that care for yourself. So this is a beautiful practice to be able to do on a regular basis. You can Google, you can YouTube, you can app your way into heaps of wonderful guided meditations, or once you get used to it, just being able to practice it yourself, even on the go. It's a simple 3-step practice to kind of stop, notice the patterns, and shift. So in conclusion, and moving forward, another antidote to train the brain is just living in gratitude. This is acknowledging that negativity bias, acknowledging the brain's desire to cling to what doesn't work, and find in your day the things that do. Really allowing yourself to savor those pleasant interactions. Noticing the vibrant colors of the flowers in your walk or your commute. Passing on a smile to others. Tasting your food and savoring it. Gratitude is the way to build those positive pathways in the brain that help us to hold on a little bit more to what's good. Not in a diluted sense, but in a way of being more equitable between the negative and the positive. Being able to say to our critic, yeah, this was tough, but look at all the joy as well. When times are really tough, being able to have those memories of the joy and being able to have those skills to be able to notice even the smallest things that bring us solace and nourishment. Thank you very much for taking this journey today. Wishing you well. If anyone would like to stay in touch, I'm always keen to connect with other educators and practitioners. I'm based in Asia right now and love hearing people in the region and also connecting with what's happening in North America and other places in the world. All the best.